The prophets and ministers of God's true church were to serve in humility of spirit, never accepting adoration of any form. However, this new false church disobeyed the word of Jesus Christ, and took upon itself religious titles as it willingly received the adoration of the populace. These are some of the very things that Jesus Christ condemned in the teachers of Judaism. God's representatives were not to be like them. 186. But all their works, Jewish religious teachers, that they do, is to be seen of men. They make their phylacteries broad. This reference to apparel worn to signify their eagerness, above other people, to be reminded of the law of God, and their desire for people to see them as being more righteous than others, and enlarge the borders of their garments in effort to make their garments appear different from others, to look religious. They loved the uppermost rooms at feasts. Their motivation was to be seen by others as important, and the chief seats in the synagogues. They thirsted for power and authority over others. They seek special greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But don't you be called Rabbi as a religious title, for one is your master. Religious title, even Christ and all of you are brothers. Do not call any man your father on the earth as a religious title, for one is your Father who is in heaven. Neither are you to be called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. He that is greatest among you shall be your servant. God's prophets and ministers are not to be served, but to serve others. Whoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. Matthew 23:5-12. The counterfeit Christianity adopted the practice of the false priests of the pagan religions, and that of the teachers of Judaism. They did not adopt the religious title of rabbi, since that was fully Jewish in origin. Instead, they eventually incorporated titles of father, reverend, and pastor. The chief title of this new religion belonged to the one who was considered to have preeminence over all others, and that title was both the Father of all fathers. 187. God's servants do not choose religious titles that belong to God. They do, however, have job descriptions that identify their specific service to God. Some are apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, elders, etc., but these descriptions are never to be used as a religious title or personal greeting, address or acknowledgement to be received from others. Other deceptions. There are only two branches, known as Christianity, that have their roots in the 1st century AD. One is the true Church of God, that has always existed since it began in 31 AD. This church has always carried the identity to whom it belongs, God. The other church is the Catholic Church. No other churches can be traced back to this beginning in the 1st century. All other churches have either split off from the true Church of God, after abandoning the truth, or they have splintered off from the Catholic Church, to form their own organization, or from some other such splinter. Some of these churches that exist to this day include the Lutheran Church, Church of England, Baptist Church, Methodists, etc. Furthermore, the earliest of these didn't form until the 16th century AD. Therefore, it took nearly 1,500 years before any other group emerged that called itself Christian. The list of counterfeit teachings is far too long to address here. Another book would need to be written. There are numerous pagan teachings that have merged into a framework, mimicking parts of Christianity. Some of the teachings of paganism that involved sun god worship included the birth of a son to a virgin mother. Satan knew God's plan of a future son, and counterfeited it long before the time of Jesus Christ. Statues of a mother and child being worshipped by followers of paganism existed for 188 centuries before Jesus was born. Indeed, statues and other religious relics have always been a part of pagan worship. In pagan worship, as part of a great religious observance that celebrated the birth of a son to the sun god, was the celebration of the winter solstice somewhere in the time period of late December to early January. Hence, it was not a difficult thing to counterfeit this pagan teaching by saying that this was the time of Jesus' birth, and thereby merge a semblance of the two religions. However, nearly all religious scholars will acknowledge that Jesus Christ was not born in this season of the year, but at a time near September. Some people get upset and ask, what does it matter, as long as Christmas is about honoring and worshipping Jesus Christ? It is wrong, because it is not from God. All religious worship and observance is to be done exactly the way God commands. God further commands that we are not to add to, or take away from, what He commands us. Doing things our way instead of God's way is the very problem that has existed since Adam and Eve, and this is the very thing which God is about to correct on this earth. Another great deception concerns the teaching of a doctrine that has its origin in the false teaching of Easter. This topic will serve as part of an introduction into the content for the remainder of this chapter, regarding the mystery of God that is being revealed. It is helpful to understand the great deception that surrounds this false doctrine, so that you might be able to begin to see what is actually true, and what has held traditional Christianity captive for centuries. By 325 AD the Catholic Church had become very strong, and it had great religious appeal among the populace as well as leaders in government. The Council of Nicaea was called by the Catholic Church to address some foundational doctrines of the 189 Church that would carry powerful influence over all who would follow this same false course, even among the later splinter organizations. The true Church of God, at this time, had remained small, and was hated by others in the Catholic Church. Up to this time, and ever since, this great false church has been the primary persecutor of God's Church, and has been responsible for the slaughter of many of God's people. This information may be hard for you to hear, but you must come to grips with this knowledge now, or you will have to do so in your resurrection after the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ. God is not playing games with the world. Mankind will no longer be able to simply ignore God and continue on his merry way. God is bringing this great false system to a close. It will be destroyed, and all organizations that have copied it will be destroyed as well. Notice what God actually has to say about this great false church, and all who have been born of her teachings. Then one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, this is one of the angels that had one of the vials of the 7 last plagues, which will be poured out on the very day of Christ's return, came to me, and talked to me, and said to me, "Come here and I will show you the judgment of the great whore." God uses this term to describe her great spiritual whoredom used to deceive and attract people to a false religious system that calls itself of God, who sits upon many waters, a description of power, political influence and control, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication spiritually, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. People have been seduced, and 190 made spiritually drunk on her false whorish ways. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman Catholic Church sit upon a scarlet-colored beast that was full of names of blasphemy, and having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. This church has always had great wealth, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. On her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. The harlots are all other churches that have their roots in the Catholic Church. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, responsible for the death of many of God's people, and when I saw her, I was amazed with great astonishment. Revelation 17:1-6. If you are beginning to see a bit of the picture, you will see that God is getting ready to finally bring an end to this great whore and all her harlot daughters. Does anything calling itself of God, or Christian, carry any weight with God, if it is formed in disobedience? No. Many of the harlot daughters of the Catholic Church think they are fully separate from her, but they are not. They do not grasp that their roots are deeply embedded in her. Before we continue with the importance of the Council of Nicaea, it is first needful to describe a few of the false beliefs originating from the Catholic Church. Some of the most hideous teachings of the Catholic Church, which hold traditional Christianity in captivity to deception, are 191 focal to most of these religious organizations. I will mention a few of these false teachings and explain what is actually true. The seventh-day Sabbath has been perverted into a doctrine of Sunday worship. Easter is observed instead of the Passover, which was replaced by the Council of Nicaea. Christmas, Halloween, Lent, and Communion all have their roots in paganism, and have been instituted to replace God's annual holy days. The truth about a future resurrection to physical life once again in God's world has been replaced by ideas of an immortal soul that goes to either heaven or hell at death, or some place between. Jesus Christ said that the only sign he would leave that would prove he was who he said, the Messiah and man's Passover, is that he would be dead, and in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights.